She was just here. I don't know where she went. 558, she was just right here.
She was just here.
What'd she do with her computer? Her computer is right there, so she moved.
Should be.
Hello there.
Catch her before.
It was wonderful. This was what?
Who said that?
Well, there was a problem back in the day. That's a
Oh,
little problem.
jeez.
This is going back to the old companies in the past that really have.
Genovese?
Well, there was a few, but that was Arizona. Illinois is clean up. Really no direct connection. I don't know which one this is.
Oh, I think so.
There you go.
Casey, how you doing, sir? You always get the good meetings.
Kevin said it was to me.
Hey, guys.
How are you, Justin?
Hey. I can-
You did. Tinting windows at the bottom. So this is just another ton of wood. Glass block. Everyone's gonna stand up. When you get home.
I'm ready to do it today. Hold that Band-Aid.
To vote on. Let's vote.
You woke up.
Just want to make
Sit
sure.
with us tonight. Huh? So you don't call.
Yeah. So I don't know, do I table before the motion or do I table right off? Does it come, how do I get a table? Should I?
Surgery today.
If I,
That's why we have the rules. Just for- She's chewing on like a guy.
Nobody else gets
What
one.
did
They come
It's
alive.
blood.
It's not gonna happen.
Gum apparently it's grown.
no, it's a brand new.
Happen. I think that's my-
It's weird, so. But you have the ability to say
I
something.
think the motion to do it, and then
saying
first thing out, first person to say something. That's how I'm
So
gonna
she's
act
getting picked
it.
up right about now. Come on.
That's how I'm treating it. Let me know if any legal.
Well, they give us a range. Between 875 and 1300. So.
Of course.
That's. Amber's like, well, it's 60. You got the X-rays for the. Might as well.
And I didn't picture wrong.
Part of the family.
Trustee, public safety, parks and rec, and then
Okay.
Get your bag out.
Barring any unusual, that's ordinance 48, that's the way we normally do. Yeah. Hey. Just, when we get the verbal one, I have.
Sir.
Hello there, Casey. How are you?
Good. Oh, sorry. If I said DC.
You too, Casey.
trustees, are you ready? Start out with public safety.
Yeah, because he wants to leave, is that it?
I thought he was
Is that
sticking
what's
around.
going on, Tim? No, he's not.
Village
stick
of
around?
Orland Park,
You're not gonna
Public
stick around?
Safety Committee meeting,
If you want me to, I
call to
will.
order.
It's just another town hall meeting.
Trustee Guerra,
You want to hold his hand? Here.
Trustee Calendrella,
Here.
Trustee Carroll.
Here.
Approval of the minutes of April 2nd, 2018,
Madam
Public
Chair.
Safety Committee meeting.
Trustee Carroll.
I move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the Public Safety Committee of April 2nd, 2018.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Prohibit electronic possession and distribution of sexually explicit images.
Chief?
Madam Chairman and members of the committee, I have 4 ordinances here that largely mirror different sections of state law. that make these things either a misdemeanor or in some cases a felony. As you'll see, interfering with a 911 call can be a felony as well. So this allows us to take cases on an individual basis, and those cases that are relatively minor in nature, avoid a misdemeanor arrest or even a felony arrest for these things, and make it an ordinance violation. We always have the authority to go misdemeanor or felony, but it gives us another avenue to take, another tool in the toolbox in those cases that are relatively minor, and giving a person a second chance so they don't deserve to get a misdemeanor arrest and, of course, then have a permanent criminal record. So all four of these reflect this type of reform, so to speak. Okay, so that's the first one on the sexting.
Okay. Are there any questions from the audience, from the committee?
Madam Chair, go ahead, you have a question?
Yeah, I do.
Oh.
Yeah, just, Chief, is there any concern about whether, especially in the first one on the sexting issue, whether there are any record-keeping requirements that we'd have to have in case that offender were to commit a similar violation, or
Well,
beyond our normal record-keeping for all our case
well,
reports?
as you know, for juveniles, if there's, the new issue is if a person's charged, it's gone in 6 months. So we're not going to know much about juveniles. For an adult, if there is a past record that we're aware of, naturally there won't be any ordinance violation. It would be a misdemeanor, in all likelihood a felony charge. These are for those things where you have a couple of kids who make a stupid mistake, more or less. It happens in high school a little bit, and before you make this a misdemeanor arrest, oftentimes an ordinance violation is an appropriate outcome. But Trustee Carroll, I assure you, if there's any past background, we'll go for the maximum.
I was thinking the other way around. If this was the first, and then they did something else later on, is there anything unique about the record-keeping requirements that we'd be required to do in this?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. I didn't think so either, but just wanted to double check.
Trustee Calendro?
I have a motion. Are we ready? Oh,
Yeah, we're
okay.
ready.
I move to recommend to the village board to pass an ordinance entitled, an ordinance amending Title 8, Chapter 6 of the Orland Park Village Code regarding electronic dissemination of visual deception, texting, and amending Appendix B as in boy fine schedule.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Electronic harassment ordinance amendment.
Again, this is another one of those that on a minor event, typically kids that might get severe, we can do an ordinance violation rather than going after them on a misdemeanor or felony charge.
And we're keeping with state
Yes.
recommendations. Okay, any other questions from the audience? From the committee? Chair will entertain a motion.
And Chair?
Trustee Carroll?
Move to recommend that the village board to pass an ordinance entitled, an ordinance amending Title 8, Chapter 6, offenses of the Orland Park Village Code regarding electronic harassment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Misuse and abuse of the 911 telephone system.
Again, from misuse of it is typically a disorderly conduct, though in DeKalb they had a felony charge on abusing the 911 telephone system. And again, this is for a minor violation, but from time to time, we do get people that, for whatever reason, intoxication, mental illness, we'll start calling 911. They can tie up our operators for hours on end, believe it or not. That might be a more serious charge, but more often than not, it's something that can be solved with some a referral for mental illness, or they end up in hospital for detox or something along those lines, where a criminal record really isn't appropriate at this point.
And as you say, another tool in the toolbox.
That's exactly it.
Any questions from the audience? From the committee?
No.
Chair will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair,
Trustee Calendro?
I move to recommend to the village board to pass an ordinance entitled, an ordinance amending Title 8, Chapter 6 of the Orland Park Village Code regarding misuse and abuse of the 911 emergency telephone system.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unintended child in motor vehicle.
This ordinance allows us, if a child is in a car left unattended for more than 10 minutes, you can infer that that it is a unattended and be charged with a state statute violation. This allows us to go to age 7, in fact, and from time to time, mom or dad will run into a store and do this. Should it be, if it's under some, if there is a real good excuse, should we again put the handcuffs on them, drag them into the station and charge them when maybe they ran in because another child was ill or any other number of excuses. So again, we just like to have another option here than putting the handcuffs on someone when it really isn't the most appropriate thing to do.
And didn't you say it also allows for not only not being in the car with them, but being in line of sight?
Yes.
So that they are watching what's going on. Okay, any questions from the audience? Sure. Come up to the microphone, please. And just identify yourself for the record for the clerk.
Linda Shanor, Orland Park. I just overheard this. Does this apply to animals too? Dogs?
No, I think
Or
this
it
is
is-
strictly for children.
Strictly children?
Animals is something we could consider, though.
We already have ordinances in regards to unattended animals in cars, and I hate to say, but frequently we write that type of citation.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Anyone else from the committee? Chair will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair,
Trustee Carroll.
move to recommend that the village board to pass an ordinance entitled, an ordinance amending Title 8, Chapter 6 of the Orland Park Village Code regarding unattended child in motor vehicle.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Madam Chairman, we are continuing to review our village code, and as we've done the last couple months, bringing forward different items like this to become village ordinances, to go into village code, and we're going to continue to do so as we go forward.
Good idea. Housekeeping. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Village of Orland Park, Parks and Recreation Committee. Trustee Calendrello.
Here.
Trustee Guerra.
Here.
Trustee Carroll.
Here.
Approval of April 2nd, 2018 Parks and Recreation Committee minutes.
Looking for a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Guerra.
I move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the Parks and Recreation Committee of April 2nd, 2018.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Centennial Park Aqua Center, stair and tower resurface restoration.
Mr. Chair.
Trustee Carroll.
Move to recommend that the village board to award bid number 18-017, Centennial Park Aquatic Center Stair and Tower Surface Restoration, in an amount not to exceed $66,922 to Crossroads Construction of Lombard, Illinois.
Second.
Gary, why don't you just put a little background on this real quick?
These are the staircases and landings for the zero depth pool. The current surfacing on the stairs and landings is a pour-in-place surface that was painted over, which has become somewhat slick in areas. This is the removal of those surfaces and the reinstallation of a non-slip surface for the pool patrons.
And this would be done this season or next
This will
season?
be done this season.
Because I know we have a lot of things going on
This will
over
be
there.
done at end of season, but it will be done this season.
Perfect. Any questions from the audience? From the board? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Park Hill Pond 1, shoreline restoration and stabilization, Phase 3.
Go ahead, Gary.
Mr. Chair, this is the completion of Park Hill Pond 1, the shoreline stabilization and restoration, Phase 3. This is the third year in a row. This will complete the north side of that pond site. This is to improve the grade and stabilize the soil, the shoreline with native plantings.
Any questions from the audience? From the board? Sure, Trustee Gare.
I know, Gary, they've been working on this pond. All right, so they've got one shoreline done, and now they're going to finish it this year?
This is the third area, for reference in your mind, where Mrs. Singletary lives. Roughly the end of that going towards Park Hill Drive.
Okay,
It's been smaller chunks of this project because access to the site is so limited.
Yeah.
And hauling the stuff in between and restoring residents' property, get back and forth. That's why we've broken up into several phases because of cost.
it's 7 phases, and which one is it?
This is 3.
3, okay. Progress, always.
Any other questions from the board? Looking for a motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Gare.
I move to recommend to the village board to approve the shoreline restoration and stabilization of Park Hill Pond 1, north side, 1,080 linear feet, Phase 3, which includes a 3-year stewardship, 2018, 2019, and 2020, for the site to V3 Construction Group Limited at a total cost not to exceed $191,406.50.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Tree purchase and planting, 2018 to 2020 RFP award, 18018.
Go ahead, Gary.
Mr. Chair, this is a RFP award for the purchase and planting of trees throughout the village, not only park properties and village grounds, but also right-of-ways and parkways in front of homes. Parks and Grounds worked with Public Works in conjunction to get this issued because we all buy trees. Our former contract expired at the end of last year. We're trying to go with 2 vendors this time around. Last year, we ran into quite a bit of problem with responsiveness, and we want to ensure that if one vendor can't complete the task in a timely fashion, we have a backup contractor to go in and do it, so that way we're giving accurate information to the residents.
Any questions from the audience, from the board? Looking for a motion?
Mr. Chair.
Trustee Carroll?
I move to recommend to the village board to award Acres Group of Plainfield, Illinois, and Mid-America Tree and Landscape of Mokina, Illinois, RFP 18-018, tree purchasing and planning, an amount not to exceed the board-approved budgeted amount.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Centennial Park Aqua Center, VGBA grading improvements, bid award 18016.
Go ahead, Gary.
Mr. Chair, this is to
Anything else?
replace the Virginia Graham Baker Act grates that are installed in the zero depth pool. This will be happening at the end of season. We could not get this in ahead of time, as they have to cut the bottom of the pool out, re-put the concrete and let it cure, and then repaint it. We didn't want to take the chance of not having this ready before the pool opened.
And Gary, not to put you in a spot, but what are we doing this year to improve the pool? I know we're doing a lot of stuff, so.
If you'll look in your packets, in manager's notes from last Friday, I sent copies of all the slides that were just repainted and re-gel coated. We've replaced 2 filtration pumps, which were flooded suction, which were vertical turbines. They've been converted to flooded suction, which are a lot easier and a lot more affordable to maintain. We have replaced all the link seals in the sump pits below the pool office and the old pump room. Those are the connections that pipes go through a concrete wall. It seals those up so there's no other leaks. We are replacing the 2-inch sump pit that gets rid of all the overflow groundwater with the 3-inch sump pit. We've installed 5 variable frequency drives this summer, and 2 more will be installed as the new pumps are completed. There's a lot of things going on at the pool.
So a lot of
It's
people.
very, very hectic.
And I appreciate
But
all
we
your
will
hard
open
work.
on time, sir.
What, 2 more weeks? 3 more weeks?
28th.
28th, all right. New improved pool, 28th. All right.
Yeah.
Any questions from the audience? From the board?
Mr. Chair.
Trustee Carroll?
So Gary, will this prevent the indoor water park grading issue we had with the kid, as we saw on TV a couple weeks ago?
We are already able to prevent that. All of our
Okay.
grates are anchored and secured down. I saw that on television and I was appalled. It's horrible.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, all of our stuff is anchored with fasteners, at least 6 to 8 per grate.
Great.
And
Great.
we,
Pun not intended.
Great, good,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
good pun there.
Mr.
Great, get
Chair,
it, great.
Great.
Go, I'm sorry.
um,
Oh, go ahead,
also,
Nancy, I'm sorry.
Our opening day is the 26th.
26.
6.
Just want to clarify that.
Buy some extra time.
I gotta get my membership.
And you're 26, right? Open 26 and 20? No.
28, I believe. Annual versus season, there's a debate on that issue, but yeah.
Okay. 26, so make sure you print that in your papers. Just joking, guys. Just joking, guys. Just joking. I never do that. You know I never do that.
Pool's coming.
All right.
Did.
I never do that, so it was a joke.
Just
But
did.
you just did. You can't say never.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Kara.
I move, since I bring it back up.
See, you make the joke and then you make fun of me and then
Okay, I move to recommend to the village board to award bid number 18-016 Centennial Park Aquatic Center VGBA grading improvements in an amount not to exceed $55,432 to Crossroads Construction Incorporated of Lombard, Illinois.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Recreation Department Program Guide, 2018 Fall Program List approved.
So we're getting ready for summer, talking about the pool opening, but we're also planning for fall. So what you have before you are the programs to be offered in the Recreation Autumn Program Guide. These programs include the contractual costs for your approval. As you know, these costs are covered by the revenue generated by our participation registration fees, and the actual costs are dependent on the number of the participants registered. So staff is requesting approval to move forward and approve these Autumn Program Guide.
And I would definitely want to give kudos to Nancy and her staff because I know how hard she looks over and they all look over what's working, what's not working, and then also trying new events. So I know the work that goes into it, so I appreciate that. With that, any questions from the audience? From the committee?
Mr. Chair.
Trustee Carroll.
I did look through every line of this over the weekend. I noticed there weren't very many areas. I think there was only one in it. I think it was on individual fitness
Assessments?
Yeah, or no, it was training or whatever. There weren't very many that showed an expense, because I know it was only for over $5,000, but some of them had an overall very large revenue, like physical training and things. Is that because the individual expenses were contracts, all that for less than 5,000?
Well, the personal training are our staff.
Okay.
So
So it wouldn't be an
that's
expense.
pure
Okay.
revenue outside
Gotcha.
of the staffing costs. But just to give you an idea too, for this season for fall, as Trustee Calandrella stated, we analyze our programs and review them for viability. So we have 28 new programs that are coming up for fall, with 10 that we're discontinuing because we've identified that they're just not working. We've tried different days, different times. They're not viable, so we're pulling those offline. And then we have 17 that are on the bubble that we're doing our last go around to see if we can make it work. Otherwise, those will be pulled off.
Does that mean you and I missed out on hot yoga?
Can I watch?
We've got hammock yoga.
I saw that, and chair yoga or something like that, too. Yeah. I read it all, every line.
And I'll have to say, a little off topic, is my wife and all her friends have loved the book, the programming book this year, or this season. So all the parents at mommy classes, which I did attend, so I guess it's parents' classes, are raving about the book and how they like the book. I know we always talk about, can we cut it or can we make it prescription only, but I think I just want to put that to
It's our number one marketing tool. As we hear feedback, every survey we do, that's the number one tool to promote our programs and events.
We can correct the USPS, though. They sent me 2.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, surprised.
All right, so we're looking for a motion, I think.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Mr. Carroll, Trustee Carroll.
I moved to, at least it was Mr. this time. I moved to recommend to the village board to approve the recommended programs and payment to the contractual instructors at time of invoicing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Village of Orland Park Finance Committee meeting. Trustee Carroll.
Here,
Trustee Guerra.
Here.
Trustee Calandrella.
Here.
Approval of April 2nd, 2018 Finance Committee minutes.
Mr. Chairman.
trustee Hero.
Move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the Finance Committee of April 2nd, 2018.
Second.
Any questions, corrections, or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Budget adjustments, second quarter 2018 approval.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Calendro.
I move to recommend to the village board approve increasing the FY 2018 revenue budget by $11,612 and increasing the FY 2018 expenditure budget by $11,612.
Both columns go up the same, it's just for the reallocation of the museum curator from the part-time position to this shared position.
Yeah, and it's just a cleanup between funds.
Right. Any questions from the audience? Any questions or comments from the board? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
OPEB Trust Fund approval.
This one I'll let Ann get into before we do a motion because it's unfortunately forced upon us by the standards, but I'll let her explain it.
Yeah, and my computer keeps crashing here, and I'm not really sure why, so I can't read it, and I'm sure nobody's printed this out. There we go. Okay, so the Governmental Accounting Standard Boards issue statements periodically that both define how our financial statements look as well as what content they include. So GASB 75 is going into effect with our financial statements for fiscal year 2018, which we'll be issuing sometime before June 30th of 2019 once our audit is completed. What GASB 45 or 75 requires us to do is put the full liability of our other post-employment benefits on our books. In the past, we didn't need to put that full liability on there. And what OPEB is, other post-employment benefits, is the health care that we provide to our retirees. Even though our retirees pay for it, there's a liability that's on the village to provide that. So according to a GASB standard, we have to put that on our books. Much unlike the police pension. So the police pension is another form of a trust that we have. But for the police pension, we have the liability, but we also have a significant amount of assets that offset that liability. With OPEB, we don't necessarily have that. What GASB is recommending is that municipalities establish a trust and that they fund that trust, because if you don't have the money designated in a trust, you can't designate it to offset that liability. I might be going into too much detail. But what this trust would do is we would take the funds that we utilize on an annual basis that we receive from the retirees to pay for their health care, as well as any contributions that we make, and we would fund this trust with that, as well as interest earned on these funds would go into this trust. And then that money would be used on an annual basis to pay for the OPEB liabilities that we have. It's good for our bond rating. It's good for our overall balance sheet because our net unrestricted net assets will be higher. It's just a good common practice, best practice recommended by GFOA.
So just for clarification's sake, a lot of this liability that now we're going to require us to report is being covered by the payments from our retirees for spouses and things like that on their insurance, correct?
Yeah, and I mean, we pay as we go, so we pay for it on an annual basis. We collect from our retirees, and we pay for it for both village retirees as well as police pension retirees each year, and we pay cash as we go. But what GASB does is they project that liability well into the future based on an actuarial valuation, based upon the cost of it today, what they think the cost is going to be in the future, how many retirees we have today, how many we're going to have in the future, things like that. So that whole liability is calculated well into the future, and that's what has to go on our books. So even though we cash fund it each year, that liability greatly exceeds that amount.
So what you're asking us to do then would be take those same payments from those retirees, put it into this trust fund, and all payments will come out of the trust
Right.
fund.
So much like how you guys, when we do the budget, you see the police pension fund, but it's a separate entity. It's something where the revenues and the expenditures go into one fund and aren't touched for anything else. It would be the same concept.
Kind of like a lockbox.
Chairman?
Similar. Trustee Garrett.
But the funds that we get from the retirees in the course of 1 year will not meet the needs of the actuarial payment because they project so much further
Right.
in the
So
future.
So what we do is when we calculate the amount that the retirees are going to pay what they're going to pay, we're going to put those funds into this account. We already get an actuarial valuation done every 2 years on GASB, what was originally GASB 45, that's now replaced by 75. So we've been getting that valuation for years, but we haven't had to put it on our financial statements. So what we'll be doing is we'll get that valuation. We'll know, just for example, we need to contribute $1 million in order to fully fund both the current year cost as well as a portion of that future liability. We'll take that $1 million, what we get from the retirees, we'll put in there, and the difference will be budgeted by the village on an annual basis and contributed to that trust fund. We already budget for a portion of that because we're budgeting for the current year cost. What we don't budget for is paying off that liability over time.
Which is dictated by an actuarial,
Which is
so that we're,
right.
just like our
Which is
police
dictated by
pensions.
GASB standards as well as the actuarial valuation.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board? Any questions from the audience? And I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Garrett.
move to recommend to the village board to approve the establishment of an OPEB trust fund.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Aye.
Oh, favor aye. Okay, folks, we'll be back at 7 o'clock for the board meeting.
Yep.
Thank you.